Level 1. The acquisition. You are not a wife. You know this from the beginning. The word for what you are is pilagesh. It appears over 35 times in the Hebrew Bible. It has no clean translation in English. Concubine comes close. It doesn't come close enough. You may have been purchased. Your father sold you legally under terms described in Exodus 21. The price varies. 6 years of labor is the standard contract for a male Hebrew slave. For you, the terms are different. There is no automatic release at the 7th year. Not without conditions your master controls entirely. You entered this arrangement at whatever age your father decided, sometimes 12, sometimes younger. Your consent was not a legal requirement, it was not a social expectation, it was not discussed. Level 2, the other way you got here. You were taken in war. Not purchased, taken. Your village was destroyed, your family was killed or scattered, you were among the captives. Deuteronomy 21 covers this. It gives your captor a procedure. He takes you home, he shaves your head, he cuts your nails, he gives you a month to mourn. Then he takes you as a wife, or something close enough to a wife that the law treats it similarly. If he decides afterward that he doesn't want you, he must let you go free. He cannot sell you. That is the protection the law provides. It assumes he follows the law. It assumes his desire doesn't revise the terms. It assumes a great deal. You have no mechanism to compel any of it. You have the text. He has the household. Level 3, the household. You live inside a structure you did not design and cannot leave. The household has a principal wife, sometimes 2, sometimes more. You are ranked below all of them. The Hebrew term for the first wife is Isha. For you, pilagesh. That distinction shapes every hour of your daily existence. You cook. You grind grain. Grinding alone takes 3 to 4 hours per day for an average household. You carry water from the nearest well, often a quarter mile away. You spin. You weave. You manage animals. You work from before sunrise until after dark. The principal wife supervises. You execute. Every correction comes from above you. Your food and clothing are technically guaranteed under the terms of Exodus 21:10. Scholars debate how fully it extends to you. What is not debated is who decides. Level 4, the principal wife. She is not your enemy by default. She may be practical. She may treat you with something close to indifference. But her interests and yours do not align, and both of you understand that without saying it. Her position depends on producing heirs. Your body is also capable of producing heirs. That fact sits between you at every meal. Sarah gave Hagar to Abraham. That story is in Genesis 16. Sarah made the offer herself. She wanted children through Hagar because she had none. Hagar conceived. Then everything changed. Hagar, the text says, began to look at Sarah with contempt. Sarah treated her harshly in return. Hagar fled into the desert. She was a pregnant woman alone in the Sinai. That is how far the pressure inside that household had traveled. The law did not intervene. The law was not PR, assent in the desert. Level 5, the children. You can bear children. That is one of the primary reasons you are here. If you do, your situation becomes more complicated, not more secure. Your children exist in a legal gray area. They are their father's children. That part is clear. Their standing relative to the children of the first wife is not. It depends entirely on the man. Leah and Rachel each gave their servants to Jacob. Bilhah bore Dan and Naphtali for Rachel. Zilpah bore Gad and Asher for Leah. The children were counted as the wife's own. The women who carried them were not elevated by the births. They remained exactly where they were. Your body was the instrument. Someone else held the claim. Abraham had 8 sons total. Ishmael was Hagar's son. Isaac was Sarah's. When Isaac was born, Ishmael was sent away. He and his mother left with bread and a single skin of water. The water ran out. Level 6. The politics. You are not only a household fixture, you are a political instrument. Kings keep concubines in significant numbers. Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines according to 1 Kings 11. Those numbers represent alliances. Each woman came from a family, a tribe, a neighboring kingdom. Her presence in the palace was a treaty made physical. You are a diplomatic agreement. You are a binding contract between men who never ask you to sign it. David had at least 10 concubines named in the record. He left them behind when he fled Jerusalem during Absalom's rebellion. That decision had consequences for them that had nothing to do with any choice they made. Absalom slept with them publicly on a rooftop in sight of all Israel. This was a political statement about his father's throne. The 10 women were the statement. 2 Samuel 16 records this in full. Their bodies were the medium through which a son declared dominance over a father. Level 7. The confinement. When David returned to Jerusalem, he placed those same 10 women in a house under guard. He provided for them. He did not sleep with them again. They were kept there for the rest of their lives. 2 Samuel 20 says they lived as if in widowhood. They were not widows. Their master was alive. They were simply confined. They had not chosen any part of this, not the original arrangement, not the flight, not what Absalom did, not the house with the guard. They were present for all of it. They had no mechanism to change any of it. The text does not record how long they lived in that house. It gives them a number, 10. That is how they appear in the record, as a count. Level 8, the legal standing. You have some protections under the law. They are fewer than a wife's and technically more than a slave's. Exodus 21 outlines conditions for a woman taken as a concubine by a master or his son. If a second woman is taken, the first woman's food, clothing, and conjugal rights cannot be diminished. If they are, she goes free without payment. That is the law as written. Enforcement depended entirely on someone more powerful than you choosing to apply it. You had no court to appeal to independently. You had the text of the statute and the structure of a household that already determined your rank. Those two things were not always moving in the same direction. Level 9. The divorce question. You have no right to divorce. A wife could be released through a get, a formal certificate of divorce. There was no equivalent process for you. You were bound by your master's decision in all directions. He could keep you. He could dismiss you informally. He could pass you to a son in some circumstances. He could hold you in a status that was neither active use nor release, which is what happened to David's 10 women. The Levite's concubine in Judges 19 left her master on her own. The text describes her departure as unfaithfulness or possibly anger, depending on the translation you're reading. She returned to her father's house. Her father took her in. The Levite came to retrieve her 4 days later. Her father welcomed him. They ate and drank together. They ate and drank for 4 days. Then the Levite took her and left. Level 10. Gibeah. What happened to her that night is in Judges 19. You know the account. The Levite and his concubine arrived in Gibeah after dark. An old man took them in. Men from the city surrounded the house and demanded the Levite. He sent her out instead. She was found dead on the doorstep at morning. Her hands were on the threshold. The Levite put her on a donkey. He went home. He cut her body into 12 pieces and sent 1 piece to each tribe of Israel. This was a call to war. The tribes gathered. The civil war that followed killed tens of thousands of Benjaminites and tens of thousands of Israelite soldiers. The woman's death triggered all of it. Her name does not appear once in the entire chapter. Not once. The war has a name in the record. She does not. Level 11. The succession problem. When your master dies, his estate passes to his sons. The legitimate sons inherit the land, the livestock, the house, the position. You inherit your circumstances. If you have sons, their claim is secondary or absent depending on the household. If you have no sons, you have no claim at all. Rizpah was a concubine of Saul. After Saul's death, Abner, the commander of his army, slept with her. This was not a private matter. 2 Samuel 3 shows that Ishbosheth confronted Abner over it directly. Sleeping with the dead king's concubine was a political claim. It was a statement about succession and power. Rizpah was not a party to the dispute. She was evidence. She was the proof that Abner had reached for the old king's authority. She had no role in that meaning. The meaning was applied to her. Level 12. Rizpah on the rock. Later, 7 of Saul's male descendants were handed over to the Gibeonites as restitution for a broken covenant and executed. 2 of them were Rizpah's sons, Armoni and Mephibosheth. They were killed in the first days of barley harvest. Their bodies were left exposed on a hill. Rizpah took sackcloth and spread it over a rock. She kept watch. She drove birds away during the day. She drove animals away at night, She stayed from the beginning of harvest until the autumn rains came. Months. 2 Samuel 21 records this. She did not have the authority to demand their burial. She stayed. When David heard what she was doing, he ordered the bones gathered and properly buried. The vigil worked. She had nothing else, and it worked. Level 13. The genealogy entry. Most concubines did not have sons who became the subject of royal policy. Most concubines had lives that ran their full course inside households whose male names are preserved and whose women are not. You appear in the genealogy sometimes, a name and a function. Timnah was a concubine of Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bore him Amalek. That is Genesis 36:12. That is the complete record of Timnah in that passage. A name. A relationship defined entirely by the man's lineage. A child. That is what the text preserved, whether she was captured or given, whether she had other children, whether she lived to see her son grow. None of it is there. The genealogy needed the child's name. It included hers because it had to. That is the logic of the record. Level 14. Keturah. Keturah is a complication in the record. Genesis 25 calls her Abraham's wife. She bore him 6 sons after Sarah's death. 1 Chronicles 1 calls her his concubine. The same woman, the same sons, 2 different designations in 2 different parts of the same text. Her status was ambiguous in the record itself, not just in the household. What is consistent across both accounts is what happened to her sons. Abraham gave gifts to them while he was still alive. Then he sent them east, away from Canaan, away from Isaac. The land and the covenant went to Isaac. Keturah's sons were given provisions and a direction. Whether the title was wife or concubine, the practical outcome was the same. Distance. Removal. Isaac held what they did not. Level 15. The numbers. Solomon's 300 concubines are recorded as a block, not by name, by count. 300. They are mentioned in the same verse as his 700 wives, and the verse is about how his foreign women turned his heart toward other gods. The women are the explanation for a theological problem. They are not individuals in this passage. They are a quantity. A large household requires management, provisions, personnel. Solomon's household consumed enormous resources daily. The concubines existed within that structure. What their daily lives looked like, which of them had children, which of them had names that survived outside the census, the text does not say. They are 300. That is the number. The number is what was important to the record. Level 16. The war prize. You may have come from a village that no longer exists. The men were killed. The married women were killed, under the terms described in Numbers 31. You were unmarried, or young enough that the distinction was applied to you. You were taken. The division of captives in Numbers 31 assigned half to the soldiers, a portion to the community, and a tithe to the Levites and to the sanctuary. You were divided. You were counted alongside livestock and assessed alongside gold and silver as part of the inventory. The text is specific about the numbers. 32,000 women who had not known a man. 16,000 assigned to the soldiers. 320 to the Levites. The arithmetic is exact. Each number represents a person. The text recorded the number. The names beneath the number are not there. Level 17. The Judges period. The period of the Judges produced the most documented concubine violence in the Hebrew Bible. The household structures were less stable. The central authority was absent or contested. A man's concubine had even less institutional protection when the institutions themselves were fragmenting. The account in Judges 19 is the most extreme. But Judges 8 records that Gideon had a concubine in Shechem who bore him a son named Abimelech. Abimelech later killed 70 of his brothers on a single stone to seize power in Shechem. His mother's household, her family's city, gave him the initial support to do it. He ruled for 3 years before a woman dropped a millstone on his head from a wall and fractured his skull. He asked his armor-bearer to run him through so it would not be said a woman killed him. The armor-bearer ran him through. Abimelech's mother is not named in any of this. Level 18. What the record keeps. There is no ceremony for when your role ends, no document, no formal release in most cases. The women David left confined were kept until they died, and the text does not record when that was. You are sometimes a name in a genealogy. You are sometimes a number in a census. You are sometimes the explanation for a war. You are sometimes the reason a man's theology drifted. You occupied a space the law partially defined and partially left open. The household needed you. The law acknowledged you existed. The record mostly preserved the men around you and the children you produced. You carried those children. You ground the grain. You waded through the wars. You were handed between households, held in confinement, sent into deserts, left on doorsteps. Your name was sometimes written down. Most of the time it wasn't.